Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Game of Thrones podcast. I'm your host, Carmine of RedTeamReview, and I'm joined here once again by special guest, Mr. Trey the Explainer. Hello, Trey.
That's right. Hello. It's good to be here. I'm AKA Preston's brother or something. What did somebody
I
say?
was just about to mention that. People were like, this guy sounds a lot like Preston doing a different voice. What's going on here? I don't know where you guys are getting that. Apparently, you sound like him, apparently. Do you think you do? I've never gotten that before. I've never heard that.
I guess I've listened to him for years. I've listened to him since like 2016 or 17 or something like that. So
Damn.
maybe it's like I pick up on his because sometimes when you listen to people, you pick up on like their the words they use and stuff. So maybe that's it.
Hmm.
I'm like copying Preston because I think he's got a nice voice. He's very knowledgeable, I guess. I want to
Maybe
copy
pick
him,
on,
maybe.
on his inflections or something, like
Yeah, like his delivery. Yeah, maybe.
mannerisms.
Yeah, maybe I'm like it's like single white female. I'm like I'm like copying him. I'm gonna replace him. Oh, yeah.
But guys, as always, we're available on SoundCloud and iTunes, so consider checking us out on those platforms. And if you do, please leave us a review. It'll help out a lot. And then as always, leave your comment that below. We may cover it in the next episode. I want to through this real quick because
Mhm.
what else is there to say other than this was a phenomenal episode?
Yeah.
Possibly one of the best in the entire series. Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon included. It just delivered on all fronts, and it did this one thing. I don't know if you watched my review, but in my review I said how one of the best parts about the original seasons of Game of Thrones, like the first couple, is that despite all the magic and the sword fighting and the dragons and the White Walkers, Game of Thrones was at its best when it was just two people in a room having a real, genuine conversation about what's going on. You know, whether it was Robert and Cersei talking about their marriage in season one. In season two, I loved Arya and Tywin. Preston's favorite scene from season two is Theon and Maester Luwin.
Mm.
Season three, Jaime and Brienne. Season four, Oberyn and Tyrion. It was always just two people in the room
Kingslayer, get in
talking.
here. We're telling war stories. Like stuff like that. Yeah, you're right. You're 100%. Yeah.
This episode gave us that. It gave us what people loved about the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones. It was just multiple times throughout the entire episode was just two people in a room talking about just what's happening between them. I want to go through it by the numbers. So, where do we tackle this first? Oh my God. Aegon. Aegon, right in the aftermath of Blood and Cheese, Aegon is just going crazy because they killed his son, and that whole conversation in the small council room about making this like a whole political thing and using it against Rhaenyra, fucking brilliant.
Hmm.
Cold, calculated, but brilliant on Otto Hightower's part. It almost feels like he's a different character from last season.
Yeah. Did he care about the common people that much last season? I'm trying to think back. It's been a while. But yeah, it was very Tywin.
It was very Tywin, but Tywin I feel as though was a bit more pompous. Like Tywin was calculated, but I feel like Otto Hightower, because he doesn't have the status, the strength, the wealth, and the prestige that Tywin does. Tywin didn't have to do that much to get everything done. Otto Hightower has to be incredibly calculated
He's
to
like
get
he's
shit
like
done.
diet Tywin. He's like Tywin that hasn't really learned how to be Tywin completely. Because you're right that like Tywin wouldn't care about the common people. Would be like, what do they care? What does he say? The lion does not concern himself with the opinions of the sheep. Yeah,
Exactly. Yes.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
That is a great comparison. But Otto Hightower, he knows how to use the sheep to his advantage. Tywin will
Right.
just brute force everything. Otto Hightower needs to be very precise. He needs that precision when it comes to the small folks. I don't think he cares about them that much, but he cares about the optics, which I
Mm.
don't think Tywin gave that much of a fuck about the optics.
Right. Yeah. I like that scene. The small council scene's great. I liked Aegon destroying his dad's Warhammer figurine. That's pretty funny. I was like, no, not the Warhammer figurines.
Oh man, just so many good fucking scenes. And then after this,
Mm.
we do the funeral procession. I'm sure you felt the same way. If it seemed like they were going to do a thing where the body fell off.
Yeah. When it got stuck in that hole, I was like, oh yeah, that kid's flying off that beer. Like he's going in there. And they didn't do that. They didn't do that.
I'm so glad
I'm
they didn't, but I feel like in season one they would have. Because did you notice how in season one it was always unnecessarily gory at times for
Yeah.
no reason?
Yeah, season one like got to a little too much. Like it was like how Game of Thrones, like later season of Game of Thrones, like how do I explain this? Like when Game of Thrones, like there's like the outsider's opinion of Game of Thrones, like that it's like this really gory, really hypersexual thing. And so that was people's outside opinion of Game of Thrones, and there's kind of some truth to that, but like people have like exaggerated it, like it's like
Hmm.
Flanderization. And then like the showrunners like internalize that a bit, and like I think in the first season of House of the Dragon, where like I just think of that like tourney scene in the first episode where it's just like unnecessarily gory. It's insanely hyper violent for like no reason, and it doesn't even make logical sense for it to be that violent. So I'm happy they toned it down. Like they make you think that it's gonna be gory or it's gonna be super disturbing, and it's not. And you're like, oh, thank goodness.
That's
Yeah.
that's how I felt about that whole character. Like they got us there. They kept that tension on there. Like, what are you guys gonna do? And
Mm.
then, in my opinion, one of the best scenes in the entire franchise, Rhaenyra and Daemon having their argument.
Oh yeah.
That I don't know if you have encountered people like this because I know you're a little younger than me. I have a friend of mine. We went to high school together, and I didn't know this about her until we were going into just talking, reminiscing about old times. And she was telling me how when she was in high school, she had this boyfriend nobody knew about, and she was 16, 17. He was in his late 20s,
Okay.
and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is? I never understood this. Like, I don't understand why older guys go for younger girls because like, what do you have in common with a fucking high schooler? And she was explaining it to me, like, she. It sounded like a lot what Rhaenyra said. Like, he was kind of like this bad boy, and she thought she could change him. She thought she could do all this. She thought she could, like, mold him into what she wanted the perfect guy to be. She liked his maturity. She liked this. She liked that. And that started to sound like a lot with what Rhaenyra was saying about Daemon.
Mm.
And then she slowly came to realize that no, this guy's just a fucking loser who just
Yeah.
preys on immature, naive high school girls because older women are tired of his shit. That is kind of Damon and how he was in season one with her when she was younger.
That is what I like that. I like that dynamic a lot where you find out that Damon, he's very arrogant and self-centered and all that, but there's like this weird insecurity and patheticness to it that Rhaenyra finally sees. Because you're totally right. Like he preys on, or he preyed on like people younger than him because he could like he was insecure himself and he knew that he could possibly control them. Like I like that. Like I like that they've explored that in that scene where they're arguing in the like the bedchamber. Oh yeah. It's a very well acted scene. The dialogue's really good. And then like I don't know, I think of when the part where Damon like Rhaenyra is saying something to him, like criticizing him, and he like walks up to her and like he raises his hand like for a second and then like stops himself like he was like about to like throttle her, but then like he restrains himself. Just a super well acted scene. Like you get just like that raw energy and emotion from the actors in it. It's good. I like it. I like it.
Fucking Damon, dude. I feel like this
Damon.
the entire episode is characters you love to hate because Damon, you're right, he is pathetic. It's
Yeah.
I wrote about it on Twitter. It's that Andrew Tate energy, like I'm not the problem, you're the problem, and you're just afraid of how fucking cool I am. That's really what it ultimately comes down to. It's that Andrew Tate theory that like
Yeah.
I don't need to change, you motherfuckers need to change. It's like, man, how old are you? Like, come on. And she
They,
calls him out so many fucking times and hits the nail on the head. Viserys was afraid that he'd have to stand in my shadow, which is why he chose you, because you couldn't outshadow his legacy. It's like, bro, you really think Viserys cared about that?
yeah.
Really? Really? It's not that you're a fucking insane person who, causes chaos everywhere you go. And before I hop off the him always going after the younger girl stuff, It's one of the reasons why he hated Rhea Royce. She was an older woman, and she knew about it. Like, the only interaction we've ever seen Rhea Royce and Daemon have is where she calls him out on his bullshit. And he
Yeah.
doesn't like that. Not only is she not a Targaryen, how dare you not be a Targaryen, but she's also a grown woman
Yeah.
who
An
can see through his
independent.
bullshit.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
sees through. Yeah, you're exactly right. Like sees through his bullshit, and you're right that like, oh my gosh, that where like he talks about like Viserys and like how like he named Rhaenyra heir just because he was afraid of his brother, and how that's just like so self-centered and insecure. Because like that's just not what the truth is at all. Like Viserys didn't care, wasn't thinking like that. Like, oh my God. Oh yeah, what a great scene. Yeah, yeah, that's the thing, and that's the thing with Daemon. Um, is that he's like a piece of shit, but like Matt Smith like plays him so well and like can be so charming in scenes. Like I'm like when he's
Mm-hmm.
at like the small council table and they're like, who could have done this? Who could have killed this child? And Damon just
There's
sitting
that
there like all
shit-eating grin
smug.
the entire
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah. Like I love that. Like I love that. And he just plays the character so well. You're like, oh, that Damon, that Damon.
Plays it so well. However, at the same time, this is an argument that Preston has had multiple times on stream about House of the Dragon's portrayal of Daemon Targaryen. In the source material, which, once again, I need to remind the audience, is a third-hand account from like Maesters. In the source
Mhm.
material, yes, Daemon was a faithful, loyal soldier. And as we can
Mhm.
see in the episode 3 previews, he will be fighting his way to which I assume is Harrenhal to take it for the cause. But like I said in my trailer breakdown many months ago, it doesn't feel like Daemon is fighting their enemies. It feels like he's fighting his enemies.
Like he's got the beef with Otto and yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you're right. He is settling old scores here. That's I think that's like the conflict of the season. Like does he actually support Rhaenyra or is he just using her as a means to an end? Um, there's probably
I
a bit of
think
mix in there.
the one scene I also really loved was Rhaenys and Corlys because not only are they like the perfect couple, possibly since Ned and Catelyn,
Hmm.
but they're also Rhaenys also hits the nail on the head with Daemon. Like he doesn't he loves his family, but he wants to lead, not follow. He's not someone who has he's not someone who can walk behind another person. He needs to be in front, even though he doesn't have that privilege. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch, especially where both camps, blacks and the greens, have their own internal conflicts. And speaking of which, Otto versus Aegon and Criston Cole.
Otto stole the episode for me. I just love the Otto actor and how and he just plays the character where like he's just
Reese
like, oh,
Ifans, he's so good.
yeah,
So
he's so
fucking good.
good. Oh my God, I love that actor. He's just like I just love how he plays the character where like he just like walks into a room and he looks at Aegon and he's like, oh, like he's just like so done.
Kristen Cole, I feel like they're having fun with him this season because that motherfucker just fails upwards. You know, somehow every time something stupid goes down with Cole, he gets promoted. You know, like he kills Joffrey Lamont, starts a riot during the wedding, and then he gets to keep his job. And then he tries to assault the princess and her kids in that episode where Allison grabs the dagger and then still keeps his job. He kills a member of the small council, gets promoted to Lord Commander, and then puts out an assassination plot, which Otto correctly calls it a prank because it kind of was, and somehow gets hand of the king. What the fuck, man? Like,
uh,
Jesus Christ.
I hate him. I hate him so much. Like, like, like Damon, he's an asshole, but kind of charming. Kristen Cole, there's like nothing charming or likable about him, at least in my opinion. He's just like, just this asshole who is just like a hypocrite, like the biggest hypocrite in every scene he's in, and just a rude to everybody. Oh my gosh, and like and props to the actor. Props to the actor because like he makes you hate him so much. Where you're just like I hate this guy's guts so much and I want him I want him gone. I just want him gone. Um, because like I think of like that scene with uh Sir Auric. I'm trying to figure
Arik,
out which
yeah.
one. Sir Auric, where like it's just all projecting. Like he walks in and Auric is doing nothing wrong. He's eating his Fruit Loop cereal in the White Tower, and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
hello, my lord," and he's like, your cape is filthy, you piece of shit." Like, do you know how much dishonor this is? This dishonors the ancient Kingsguard and stuff like that. And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I had a long night. I just need to eat my cereal." Um, and like, yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Or like, I think of the scene with he has two scenes with he has one with Alicent and one with Aegon, where like he talks about Rhaenyra and he's like, "That bitch needs to get it." Like he snaps, like he kind of like
Hmm.
loses his cool, and like everybody in the room just kind of like looks at him a little weird. Like Aegon turns his head and like looks at he's like, I hate her too, but that was a little uncalled for." Like, like where like he just like it's super emotional and bitter. Like he's just so bitter that like there's this anger that's under the surface. Oh, props to that actor. That poor actor is getting a lot of like hate. Like people are harassing him online, right? He had to like mute his comments or something like that. But like,
Is that what
oh
he
my
said? He had to
God.
mute his comments because people were just going ham on him?
I think I saw that on Instagram. He like limited who could comment on Instagram posts or something like that because he was getting a lot of hate from people that I guess that can't separate the actor from the from the
Oh,
um
I hate those people so
I know
much. That's so
because people
dumb.
did it with I love Furiosa. I've been watching I've been tweeting about Furiosa like nonstop since it came out, and
Hmm.
the Rictus Erectus actor. I don't know if you know that much about Furio and Mad Max.
I
He's
just
like,
downloaded Furiosa. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard
okay.
good things.
Yeah, no, it's great. The Rictus Erectus actor, he's an actor that was brought from Fury Road. He's a Morton Joe's like really ripped son, like his buff son that's like mentally challenged. Um, they have a scene in Furiosa where like he does like something like questionable and people are like trying to cancel the actor and it's like no, no, first of all, he's like a warlord in like the post-apocalypse and that's a character he's playing. And people are like trying to cancel him over that character's actions. Like it's so we live in a weird time where because people that's what people are trying to do with Kristen Cole.
We live in a time where we've always had dumb fucks like this, but because of social media, they're more
Yeah.
like you see them more.
Right.
Someone after my last review, someone sent me this Reddit comment and suspicious tips. By the way, great username. I agree with this person 110%. They say about Cole and Alicent. They reflect moral superiority back at each other, so it works. Rhaenyra, however, set a boundary. Cole will have to be the official side piece, take it or leave it, and he was disgusted. Alicent's "we can't, this is it, but clearly not" makes him feel more in control. Add that to "she's just not any woman but the queen," that's what gets him off. I don't think he cares about her status as much as he cares about the control. Because this person is correct. Rhaenyra set a clear boundary. You are going to have to be the royal side piece. Take it or leave it. There's so much to hate about Cole. Him failing upwards. Him getting it on with Olivia Cook. You know, should have been me.
Should have been me.
should have been me. You know, like just like the hate, the unnecessary hatred for Rhaenyra. There's just so much to hate about this character. Easily one of the top three most hated character in the series. Up there with
Yeah.
Joffrey, and I would argue either Ramsay or Craster. It's like a tie.
Yeah, people like that's the thing is I think nothing makes people more angry than like a hypocrite. Like you can be like a murderer or
Yeah.
something, but if you're a hypocrite, like if you just like spute these ideas and don't actually follow your own code, like people just
Mm-hmm.
like are like you piece of shit. Like you don't actually follow what you actually like you claim you follow and you're judging other people for it. And I think that's why a lot of people hate Cole so much is that he's just this massive hypocrite. Oh my God. And he's so self-righteous and judging other people. I don't know. It's funny watching House of the Dragon because Preston's brought this up. Where in the OG series in like Feast for Crows, um there's this image of Cole that is that Jamie has and other characters have of like the
Hmm.
Kingmaker. But Jamie, I posted this that Jamie in Feast for Crows says that like he's talking to Loras and he's like, yes, in the White Book, there were good Kingsguard, there were the best Kingsguard and the worst Kingsguard, people that were really great and really bad. And he's like, and he was a bit of both. And Loras is like, who? He's like, Criston Cole. They called him Kingmaker, and it's like, and I'm like, watch. So first of all, I'm like Fire and Blood, and then in especially like House of the Dragon, you're like, I don't see any good about Christian Cole. He's just an asshole.
I
Like
think I
maybe
saw
we'll,
your tweet about this and how like this is back when George didn't know what he wanted to do with the character.
yeah, I think in the original, like back in Feast for Crows, like in 2003 or whatever, George had this idea of Kristen Cole as like a Jamie-like character, that he did horrible things for right motivations, like
Hmm.
and that like history looked at him negatively, but he actually had very good, like he was a very, I don't know, moral guy or something like that. That like how Jamie killed Mad King Ares, and but that was like a righteous thing for him to do because he saved millions of lives or however many, by doing it. He sacrificed his honor. Like I think that's what George had in mind for Kristen Cole originally. But by the time he got to writing Fire and Blood, Cole doesn't do that much. Like that's the thing, is Cole doesn't do that much in Fire and Blood, um for the entirety of the dance. um so like and then in the TV show they've made it even more where like no, he's like there's no, there's really not that much irredeemable, there's not that much redeemable about Cole in the show. Like we'll see when he's like fighting battles or something if he's like honorable there, but like yeah, like he's a hypocrite, he's misogynistic, he's at least in the original source material he's made out to be homophobic, against like Laenor. Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. So yeah, it's
He
weird.
also
It's
calls Rhaenyra's camp like degenerates and all that stuff. He has
yeah,
more of a role in the making Aegon king than he does in the show because me and Preston discussed this briefly in the books. He's of like an integral member of the Green Council that
mm,
night. He even cuts his hand to make the pact with the other members. Larys is there too, if I recall correctly.
mm,
In Fire in House of the Dragon, no, he's just following orders.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's basically what it is. So if Kristen Cole, I don't think gets mentioned in Game of Thrones. I don't recall. So you're probably right. George probably didn't figure out what he wanted to do with the character yet. And then when he got to Fire and Blood and he was writing it down, I guess he gave him a more integral part in the story.
yeah, yeah. Like in Feast for Crows, like you get this idea that he is the key member. Like he's not just like he's the kingmaker. Like without
Hmm.
him, Aegon would not have been king, and there wouldn't have been the Targaryen civil war. Um, and that was, I think it was kind of dropped by George because I guess he wanted to write Princess and the Queen, and have like that long-standing feud. Because like that's the thing, is like the dance is something that was like decades in the making. It was underlying in grievances between the Hightowers and Rhaenyra's camp, that lasted for a long time. Like it was originally like Otto and Daemon, and eventually just kind of boiled over to a point of no return. But it seems like originally George had set out for it to be like a very like that Kristen Cole was like the impetus of it. Like he started it. Like it wasn't really these long-standing feuds. It was Kristen Cole crowning Aegon, and it was only Kristen Cole, like, or primarily him. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's cool to see how the lore has changed over time, and how the show lore differs from the book lore and stuff. I don't know. I like this stuff, so I can go on tangents about it.
Ryan Condal, showrunner Ryan Condal, he said something quite interesting. He said, because they asked him about Maelor, Helena's other son. So, for those of you who don't know, in the books, Helena has three kids: Jaehaerys, the older little boy, um, Jaehaera, her daughter, and her youngest son, Maelor. Ryan Condal said that Maelor, we haven't chosen to reveal him yet, whatever the fuck that means. In fact, I should have brought this up before. Here we go. Apparently, Ryan Condal said that Maelor doesn't exist yet, and as far as we know, Helena isn't pregnant right now. So The theory going around the fandom, I don't know if you've heard this, is that Criston, Cole, and Alicent fucking around as often as they are.
I heard about this. I heard about this in like a leak or something like that, that there's a baby on its way. There's a baby on the way.
So, I mean,
That's an
I
interesting
don't.
change.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I guess the idea here is that Kristen Cole and Allison fucking around, she's gonna get pregnant, and maybe she found out that she was pregnant, and that's what she was trying to tell Otto at the very end of this episode. Father, I've sinned. I don't want to know about it.
he walks on out. He's like,
Holy
"Oh,
fuck, that family is fucked up. She
I
sees
love it."
Aegon crying, and she just like sneaks out, right?
She's like, "I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that." I freaking love the part where Otto goes into Aegon's room and he's like, "I'm sick of you not doing anything." So I had Kristen Cole do something, and and like there's like the Otto like does like this pause, and he's like, he does like this head turn, and he's like, "Now what did Kristen Cole do?" Like he's just like so tired and so done. Oh my God. I love this episode. This was like one of the best episodes of this series in my opinion. Like it's like this, and this hasn't topped the series climbing the throne room episode from last season.
Mm-hmm.
I will sit the throne today. That's like it's such a great, that's like, oh my God, that's so cool. Um yeah, yeah. Oh, speaking of like lore stuff, I was cheering. I cheered at the end of this episode. I caught me so off guard that they finally referenced Daron. Daron is real.
Yes, we have confirmation that Daron is a real person who is in Old Town at the Hightower base, and not only that though, but we got a double lore dose with the Tyrells being named. My idea here as to why, because in the last season's finale, when Otto goes to present peace terms on Dragonstone to Rhaenyra, he says, the great houses are now considering terms. Stark, Tully, Baratheon. Now, he mentions those three specifically because obviously the Lannisters are with them. The Arryns are going to be with Rhaenyra because she's part Arryn. Martells doesn't matter. They're not within the Seven Kingdom bounds yet. And the Greyjoys, who the fuck cares about the fucking Greyjoys? Who cares? Though Dalton Greyjoy did get a mention in the first episode, which was cool. Hopefully they bring him in, but the fucking Grey, like, who fucking cares about the Greyjoys? The Tyrells, you would think that they would automatically side with the Hightowers and the Crown. I think it's because the Hightowers, well, my idea here is that the Hightowers are a more prestigious family. The Tyrells are an up-jumped family. They were stewards, and now they're made the Lords Paramount of the Reach by default because
Yeah, it's still
Aegon killed the
recent.
last guys
It's
until
only been
recent.
like
So
100 years or something like that.
right, they're actually about 100 and some odd years like old house that has been made like has been put in charge. While the High Towers, in my opinion, have more influence, more wealth. They just have more of everything. They're older, and we all know when it comes to this franchise, this series, the oldest house usually has like more standing with the other houses. That's there's more respect there. I'm surprised that the Tyrells were mentioned, and from what Allison said, it sounds like they have some modicum of influence, despite the Hightowers clearly having a bit more.
Who
So,
did they say the Tyrell support? Do they support Rhaenyra?
so in the books, the Tyrells stay neutral. They just don't
Yeah,
involve
because
themselves.
it's like a child is like the Lord or something. So like their excuse is that there's like a little kid who can't really make
Mm-hmm.
decisions or something. Yeah,
His
and you're
mom's
right.
the regent.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right that the Tyrells do nothing the entire dance, and like that's the weird thing about the Dance of the Dragons is that the High Towers and the Velaryons are such powerful houses in it. Like they're like some of the most powerful houses in the realm in the Seven Kingdoms, and then by the time of like the modern story, both of those houses are like irrelevant, like they're barely referenced and have no power or anything. It's very weird. And I guess maybe that's like the dance caused that, like the fallout just like bankrupted the houses.
That's a
Yeah.
yeah. I like the idea that whenever unless it's the great houses, whenever one of the minor houses goes into war, they risk more than like, losing a few soldiers. They risk their position, their status. They risk a lot more. And I like that because as we're going to find out with the Velaryons, after the Gullet, their stronghold, their island gets fucked up tremendously. So I won't go into too much detail for people who want to be kept in the dark, but the Valar, no one leaves this war unscathed, with the exception of House Stark. House Stark, they get a lot out of this war. they get a
Well,
lot of.
it's because Cregan Stark's an asshole. Yeah, yeah.
Tell the audience why Krieg is an asshole.
Like I guess this. See, they might change it. Like it totally seems like they're probably going to change it. But in the source material, Cregan Stark like basically like delays and delays and delays and shows up like I don't know how long it is. It feels like a year late, and like and and basically like is the mop up crew. Like everybody else is defeated, and Cregan Stark is like, "Yes, I'm here. Hello, I saved the day," and like totally, it's like an asshole. Like when everything's done and like the war is basically over, he finally arrives with his army. Um, and I'm like, you're just like, you asshole, Cregan Stark. You like delayed forever. But in like the books, okay, this is the difference between the book and the show is that in the books, his excuse is that they need to take in one final harvest before the winter, which I guess that's an excuse. That's a valid excuse. But in the show, Cregan is like, we got to protect ourselves from what's north of the wall. We got to defend ourselves. And you're like, what? Like the White Walkers, which will come in like 300 years and haven't showed up for
But they
8,000
don't know that
years?
they're
Like,
going to come 300 years. This is one of the things that a lot of people keep forgetting about season 1 is that Viserys, when he passes the prophecy down to Rhaenyra, they know that something is coming. They don't know when. It could come tomorrow, next week, at any point, which is
it's
why he
been
was adamant about keeping the peace. Because Westeros, like he said in that episode 1, needs its strength to beat back the coming dark. And he's right. Like, Westeros needs to be at full power to take this on and survive it, whatever it is. And that's why he was so hesitant to get involved into any eternal conflicts, because while they're focusing on the Stepstones or anywhere else, the White Walkers could invade. And while everyone's attention is there, not focused on the other thing.
I think it's awfully convenient Cregan Stark has this excuse to not fight in the war.
Logistically speaking, the North is the biggest of all the other realms. So I guess you could also argue that not only did they take in one last harvest, but they also needed to summon all of their soldiers from every corner of the North and then,
That's the
mount
thing is
up and.
it's the biggest but the least populated. Yeah, okay, I guess the distance. Okay, maybe it's like travel times and distance they got to think about. Got to make sure like the mountain clans, the mountain clans are all ready and who else is there? Barrowton and the Boltons. Yeah, we got to make sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that's a yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm interested to see how they handle Cregan Stark, like if they're gonna have him show up so late. Because that's the thing is they have the Winter Wolves, which are like he has and I guess they brought this up in the show that there's like old men that will show up first. And they'll be
Yeah,
like
the Greybeards. I was just thinking
the
about them. Like,
Greybeards.
we'll
Yeah.
send you the Greybeards. They fight like Northerners. What the fuck does that mean? Okay, are we gonna see them? Like, are they gonna be like the Mountain Clan from like season 2, where when Tyrion goes to King's Landing? Remember how the Mountain Clan shows up and they threaten Pycelle?
Yeah, well that's a different mountain clan. That's the thing is in George's lore, for some reason he had two separate mountain clans that are called the mountain clans to make it super confusing. Those mountain clans are from the Vale. Those are the Vale mountain clans. And then there's the mountain clans in the north,
No, that's what I
up
meant.
near
Because
the
in the
wall.
show, Tyrion brings the
Oh
Vale
yeah.
Mountain clans with him to battle, and then he brings them with him to King's Landing. And then season 2, when Tyrion's threatening Pycelle, the Vale Mountain clans are still with him, but then we never
Yeah.
see them ever again. In the books, don't they set up around like the Crownlands somewhere, or in the King's Woods,
Yeah,
something like
they
that?
they split off. They split off into several groups. One, I think Tim. I see. I shouldn't. I'm such a nerd. I know this stuff. I think Timot's group ends up in, the Kingswood, and like lives in lives in the Kingswood for a while, and then Shaga, or it might be the opposite. Like he goes back to the Vale with like steel and iron and stuff, and like they're like a huge threat. Um, that the thing is in the books, the Winter Wolves or the Greybeards, like they're slaughtered to like a man. Like they all die. Like they kill themselves. Because like that's the whole point, is that like the idea was that it was winter and that the Northerners have this tradition that like in the winter to save on food, the old men kill themselves. Like they go out into the wilderness and die by exposure or something like that. But they're like, we're gonna have a more noble death by dying in a war. So they all die. They're all gone. We'll see. We'll see. I'm interested to see what happens. Something I wanted to bring up too, is there's a lot of like foreshadowing in this episode. You see baby Aegon the third, and his mom gives him a dragon, a little toy dragon. He sets it down. He puts it back down. He doesn't want it. So there's a little hint for the
I
book
did not
readers
catch that
there.
at all.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it's a slight change because in the books, a lot of the kids become dragon riders at a young age. Like Aegon is supposed to be like 4 or something like that. He's supposed to be really young, but he has a dragon in the books, and he's a rider. He even rides the dragon. Um, so I guess they cut that out. I guess he's not a dragon rider yet because that is a little silly that a 5-year-old kid's riding a dragon. That's a little
Hmm.
dumb. Yeah, so there's that, and then there's like a scene with Jace. He stands in front of the crossbow target, which is a little foreshadowing.
Of course.
Um, yeah. There's some. They did the. It's a good episode. It's a very good episode.
It's a
And
very good episode.
we haven't even gotten to the Sir Eric and Sir Arik stuff, which was all. I really like what they did there.
By the way, it's very once you know to look for this, you can't unsee it. So Eric, uh Rhaenyra's guy, he has a little mole, that twin, he has a little tiny mole above his beard, above his mustache.
Oh,
And Arik does not. So that's how you can tell them apart. So I think at the very end, Eric was the one who survived, Rhaenyra's man.
yeah.
And then so I guess you could argue he had to kill himself because how could you really tell? Um, Also, he couldn't live with the shame of killing his own brother. So, like, yeah, that was fucking tragic. In the books, it was like what, a couple of lines, but here,
Yeah. That I like the change from the book. So in the books, if I remember correctly, they both kill each other. Like they kill each other like perfectly, like they like stab each other. Um, and I like the change that one of them wins. Um, because like that's more realistic. Like yeah, it's not really realistic that they would both like perfectly stab each other, like and kill each other like that. Like I like the idea that one wins, and like the fact that he killed his twin brother who he loved. You're like, man, I need to kill myself. Like I can't live with that shame of doing that. Like I like that. It's such a powerful. Like people are talking about how they felt like it was a more powerful scene than Blood and Cheese, and I kind of have to agree. Like how like
yeah.
you feel the weight of it, and you're like, oh, that's terrible. He had to kill his own brother. Um, yeah, I do think it's a little silly that they have like the same haircut and stuff. It's like weren't people complaining about this with the Acolyte? Like the twins in
Yeah,
the
they
Acolyte,
were.
because all I need to do is like, Sir Eric, I didn't realize you shaved your beard. Or didn't you shave your beard? How did it grow back that quickly? And he's like,
I
uh-oh.
said the same shit in my fucking episode review. Like, for this guy is clearly a twin. You guys should like at least try a different
Right,
haircut or something. Like,
right.
maybe a
Like,
password. Mm?
because they haven't shown each other, they haven't seen each other for a while, for at least a couple weeks, right?
So some
And
people are
in
complaining about this. Sarah Hess mentioned how Kristen Cole's been Lord Commander for like 5 days. I think she was just exaggerating the amount of days. I feel like it's been like over a week, at least 2 weeks.
yeah, yeah, it has to be like like for travel times and stuff like that. But then again, the show typically doesn't care that much about travel times. But yeah, that's like a stupid minor gripe because like, in the book, like they are identical and nobody catches them until I think they run into each other in like a stairwell or something like that.
Something like
Um,
that, yeah.
Yeah. What else is there to talk about in this one? There was one other thing I wanted to talk about. Um, I still see, I'm still not a huge fan of that Mysaria actress. I'm sorry. I don't know if I don't know if I like her delivery. I don't know what it is. Um, Maybe it's the accent. I don't know.
It's the
I didn't
accent.
care for
It's actually. I went back and looked up. I looked it up. She's from ET. So in the original books, Mysaria is from I think Mir or Pento, somewhere from Essos. But in this show, the actress, the Mysaria is from ET, and I will admit that I do find it kind of like. I feel bad for the actress because they mishandled the character in season one, and I feel like where the character is going in season two so far, it's fine, it's better. They're actively involving her in the story instead of her disappearing for like episodes at a time. And she's supposed to rival Bloodraven as one of the best spy masters in the history of Westeros. Uh, I
Right.
she I don't get that. She just
I don't
knows a
get that
couple of
either.
guy. Like
Right.
she knows a guy who knows a
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, maybe that's it more like yeah, see like I can't put my finger on what I don't like about the character that much. But yeah, I think you're right that it's like her whole point like she just kind of seems incompetent. Like I don't know, like you don't get like the Blood Raven feel that she or Varys or Lares
Mm-hmm.
where like she because that's what she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be like Rhaenyra's version of them. Um and she just doesn't have that. I don't know what it is. Like she just doesn't have that like maybe it's how she carries herself or something like that. She doesn't carry herself like she knows what she's doing. She like is kind of like pouty and like she acts like a kid that's been caught and like angry at the parent like she's been caught. I don't know, it's weird. I don't know if I like how the characters uh played, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of like blood and
It's
cheese
they
in my opinion. I
mishandle
don't know.
her. They mishandle her
Yeah.
because she's technically doing the same thing that Littlefinger is doing, right? Littlefinger knows all this information because he runs the brothels and he instructs the women to get the guy to, loose lips, sink ships. That's the whole thing with the brothels. That's Littlefinger's whole game. And he can pay for information and so on and so forth. Fine. She didn't really own the brothel. She was just the madam or the head sex worker. Um, I never felt like she had a network of spies that was as extensive as Varys and Littlefinger. It always seemed like
Right.
she knew a guy who knew several guys who knew a guy. Which, there's a difference between like the guy in a town who knows all the gossips versus the CIA. And if Littlefinger
Right.
was the CIA, she's the town gossip. She's like the town know-it-all. It doesn't seem on the same level, and I that's on them for mishandling the character in season one. They just didn't know what to do with her.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe my mind will be changed as we go along. Um, I don't know. I don't know. Like we'll see, we'll see. Like yeah, like I think yeah, we'll see what happens with Mysaria. Because the thing is like Mysaria doesn't do that much in the source material, so it's kind of hard. Like she's just kind of like this background character.
Hmm.
But then again, they've turned like they've like totally added to the source material.
It sucks that her spy network only extends as far as King's Landing, where I feel as though
Yeah.
Littlefinger and Varys, it was very clear that their network extended beyond King's Landing.
Like it was in
So,
like lease and stuff. It was like across the narrow sea and everything too. Like
hmm
you had no clue how far or how like far reaching they were. Um like yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. And they kind of take that away where she seems very localized. So she doesn't feel like that much of a threat. Um
No, not really. No, I mean, to
yeah.
to be fair, King's Landing is where the battleground for information has to be. So I guess that's important, but at the same time, I also feel as though if Littlefinger or Varys were alive in this era and on Rhaenyra's side, they would probably have spies in some of the great halls of like the great houses. They would know what the Starks, Baratheons, Tullys, they would know what they were thinking and like what their next movement would be, which would help out Rhaenyra a great deal. But as of right
Mm.
now, that's the one thing she's lacking is like eyes in all those courts. She is behind in that regard. Laris, on the other hand, he seems more capable of getting things done inside the Red Keep, in King's Landing, and maybe even beyond that. Because remember last season he sends assassins to kill his own father and brother in Harrenhal.
Oh yeah,
So
that's right.
he seems more capable. The other scenes that we got were minor, just to set up stuff.
Mm.
We got a scene with Alan and Adam, just introducing the brothers, like they love each other, so and so forth. Was it Ulf or no Hugh? We see that
You.
Hugh is a family man and his daughter is sick, so there's that. The really cool scene between Bela and Jace, which you mentioned, I really enjoyed it. I thought their very candid conversation was really refreshing. She knows that Harwin
Yeah.
Strong is his father and all that, so that was cool. Um,
Did we there's that brief scene of is it I get them mixed up. I get like the names mixed up. The younger one, is it who's younger? Is it Alan or Adam? I think it's Alan?
I think it might be Adam who's slightly younger. I think
Is it Adam? He was like clamming, like somebody was like picking up clams.
mm-hmm.
And you get to see
Sea
you
Smoke.
you see is that sea smoke? Okay, so I
Yes.
guess Laenor had left his dragon there. And so because remember we had this question where they changed that Laenor did not die. He just went across the narrow sea and faked his death. And we're like, well, what happened to Sea Smoke? Did he leave Sea Smoke there? Is the telepathic link still there? Because there's that big thing in the lore of like that you can only a dragon can only take one rider at a time. Like it cannot have two. Like the first rider needs to die before the second one can take the same dragon. Um,
Unless
so
it's like
so
a
it
like your home Wi-Fi connection. If your cell phone is
yeah.
connected to your
So
home Wi-Fi and you get away far enough, it breaks the connection. So maybe that's what it is.
yeah. It turns out this seems to have like tested the theory where it is the Wi-Fi Bluetooth connection theory where if you get far enough away from your dragon, the link stops working. I guess, which I think is kind of silly, but okay.
We'll
It's a
we'll we'll we'll
change.
see
It's a
where
change.
they go with that because I mean at
Yeah.
least I'll be honest with you. At least Ryan Condal is answering some questions that people have had. If he does do that, at least he is going through with it. And we do know that he and George talk quite often, so maybe this is stuff George is telling him.
Hmm.
Like who knows? Maybe George passively answering questions and confirming lore implications through all these other projects. Who knows? But yeah, no. For the most part, very good episode. I disagree with you in regards to it not being as good as the Viserys episode from season one, episode 8. I think this is the best House of the Dragon episode we've ever gotten,
Oh,
simply because, oh yeah, simply because every interaction between these characters, not only was it long overdue, everyone nailed their parts. I don't think there was one bad scene this entire episode.
I think you're right. Yeah. I'd have to rewatch the episode 8 or 9, whichever one that was,
It was 8.
to compare them. Okay. Because you're right. This was like I remember finishing it and it was like this is a really great episode. Like yeah, like this is one of the best episodes I've seen in a while. Like of Game of Thrones in general, where everything was well executed and like there wasn't like that one scene that like pisses you off. Like there isn't that like
The
one
only the
dumb
only thing that pissed
scene.
off a lot of people, and rightfully so, like this, you're supposed to be pissed off with this, was Cole accusing Eric of like not doing his job, even though Cole is being a massive piece of shit, a hypocrite. That's on purpose. And
Yeah.
another episode ending with Kristen Cole and Allison fucking. Like the writers know to piss you off. Like they're doing it on purpose. They know
Right.
they know you hate Cole. Like, but they're doing it on
Yeah.
purpose.
Like I'm thinking more like when I say like to piss you off, it's like stupid, like stuff that's like kind of like just really stupid, like um Rhaenys breaking out of the dragon pit and
Oh my god.
um Laenor getting Joffrey Lonmouth getting beat to death at the wedding. Like
Oh.
remember like last season there was always like some stupid dumb thing that is like what? That's so stupid. Why would you include that? And it's like it was a flawless episode until then. Um
I discussed this with Preston. Like when House of the Dragon season 1 was good, it was good. But when it was bad, it wasn't just bad. It was really bad. It was like in
yeah, I was a
extremes.
stinker.
It was
Yeah.
ridiculous. It was ridiculous. So far, we're 2 episodes in. I have no issue with any of these episodes so far. The only one thing that I would say that was kind of was Blood and Cheese. That whole execution. I wasn't a fan of it, but it did its job.
Yeah.
Here, how do they top this episode? I just hope they continue this quality high that they're on right now, because my God, ironically, Star Wars Acolyte. I just saw the latest episode. I don't know if you watched episode 5 of Acolyte.
Tell me what happened. I watched somebody's review of like the other one, so I know what happens. I haven't watched Acolyte. I know I'm bad.
Oh,
I just watch people's
it's
reviews of it.
it's hard for me to recommend you to watch Acolyte because the first 4 episodes really are a slog to get through, but then episode 5 gives you everything you've been wanting this entire thing. Because episode 5 is when the Sith is revealed and he fights. Oh, Trey, he annihilates all the red. Are you familiar with the Star Trek term red shirts?
Yeah, yeah, like useless people, like no kind of
Yeah,
no
who just there
names.
to die.
Yeah.
There are so many red shirt Jedi's in episode 5, and they all get to say they get defeated or killed is an understatement. They get murked. Holy shit, they get fucking obliterated by this
Okay,
guy.
I'll look
And
up just this scene.
oh, dude, just look up just the fight scene. The fight scene, the choreography is great. But the reason I brought up
It
Acolyte is
says,
because it also has a twin story. Somehow House of the Dragon, with just a few lines, just like one 5-minute scene, was able to do that twin moment better than Acolyte did. Because at one point, the twins and Acolyte have a conversation. It's just so wooden and just lame, and you don't really care. And it's just okay. Like, it's just the dialogue is bad, and the acting was just not. The girl is not a twin herself, so it's like she's just playing both characters. The same woman is playing both characters.
oh.
It wasn't great, but no. House of the Dragon did the twin thing very well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you feel it. Like you feel like the actors did such a great job. You feel like the conflict between them. You're like, oh gosh, like these are brothers who love each other. And like the fact that like Rhaenyra is in the scene, because I don't think that's in the original source material. I think he catches him before he even meets her. So she's like trying to leave, and like the other one has to like grab the other one and like smashing. There's pots being smashed, and people are sticking fingers into open wounds to like distract him. It's like it's I don't know, it's very, very well executed. Like Hot D season 2, I didn't know what they were gonna do. Like I didn't know if Hot D was gonna stay good or better, get better. And they're really surprising me because like the thing is that like I was skeptical because um the source material, Fire and Blood, really isn't that good. It's okay. It's not George at his strongest. Like you don't really get these strong characters in it, and they're like totally surprising me where I'm getting very invested, and the scenes are very well executed. They've improved on the source material in many ways. So yeah, yeah, I like House of the Dragon. I'm very like it's the first show in a while that I'm like very happy to excited to see it next week. So yeah.
I'll tell you this right now. I know for a fact you haven't watched one of the best shows in like there is one show I can recommend to you right now that I know you would like. You like sci-fi, right?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I like sci-fi.
Have you seen Foundation yet on Apple TV?
I've seen clips of Foundation.
Oh,
Is it good? I saw like
oh
the
my
elevator, the
God.
space elevator clip because I just like seeing, I don't know, space opera, crazy CGI
Oh,
stuff.
Trey. Oh my God, Trey. You have no idea. Season 1 was good. Homie, season 2 is on another level good. Get through season 1. Season 1 is fun. It's good. It's fairly good. But season 2, oh fuck! I promise you'll like season 2 if you get there. I highly recommend it to you. It was my best show of last year, and yeah, it's just give it a shot. If you like House of the Dragon now, like what you're liking now, that Foundation has that quality. I always say it's the best show you're not watching.
Okay. Okay, I'll check it out. I'm a sucker for like shows with just like really good characters that you're like, yeah. I don't
Yep,
know,
yep.
like
This right here, this Foundation on Apple TV. So, Mr. Trey, I've kept you for too long. Do you mind if we wrap it up here?
yeah, sure.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.